Looking for the best decks in MTG Arena Timeless Best of 3? Well, you stumbled on the right spot. Today, we are going to cover you off with a weekly meta breakdown where we look at the top performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. If you want the best, highest win rate decks that can lead you to Mythic rank, definitely check out the list of decks we'll be covering today. And we get this data from UntappedGG, what you see on the screen, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, tracks user win rates, puts them all together. You could track your own win rates, give you a whole bunch of cool details. If you want to use Untapped, link is in the video description down below. I will timestamp and paste all these deck lists so you can jump around the video to whatever your heart's content and kind of see those sections, or you can watch it through the entire thing and then just kind of get a feel for the metagame. So we are going to be looking at the popularity of the day, kind of where the metagame is staying in terms of play rates, and then we'll look at the decks themselves. We are going to look Platinum to Mythic. The population for Diamond to Mythic's only like 2,800 games played, which is pretty small, all things considered, but we'll take a look. And then I found another cool list from the community that will also feature too towards the end of the video. So jumping into it, Platinum to Mythic rank, like I said, the most popular deck is Mardu Energy at about 17.5%. So there's the Boros Energy, there's Mardu Energy. The Mardu Energy has a Luris companion and a Giganta companion version. I'll indicate these in the deck list with either like bracket L, bracket J, just so you can differentiate between the two versions. There's similarities, obviously, but having access to Giganta opens you up to cards that are greater than 2 CMC in terms of permanence. Show and Tell is about 10%. There is a Simic. There's a Sultai, there's a mono blue version of Show and Tell this week, yes. So we'll cover a couple of those off. Boros Energy about 9, Dimir Tempo at 8, the 4-color elementals at 5, Jeskai Control at 4, Dimir Control kind of fallen off. Dimir Control might also just be combined in some essence to the Dimir Tempo list because they're kind of ubiquitous at this point. They've been slowly increasing the density of creatures in the deck itself. And then Rakdos Scam at about 2%. Scam decks really aren't doing too well. So many card advantage engines in this format that kind of hard to just, you scam them and they just draw out of it and then you kind of lose that way there. Energy's got so many 2-for-1 value engines too. So in terms of just like play rate densities, we have seen Energy peak at about 24% for the Mardu version, similar to Boros. We are seeing them on a somewhat downward trajectory. Interesting, we do see the Show and Tell version kind of pop at the same time and then slowly kind of fall as I think there's a correlation here that the Show and Tell decks tend to be fairly good against these Energy decks. So if the play rate comes down, you'll also see that come down. Otherwise, like the Jeskai Control has been hovering around the same, Elementals hovering around the same as well. So we will, sorry about that. 7,600 games from Platinum to Mythic. Again, like if we switched the 2,600 from Diamond to Mythic and then 940 just kind of coming up. So it's a lot smaller population in terms of decks played. So Mardu Energy, we have it at the Luris version, 92%. Again, these are somewhat small sample sizes. I wouldn't focus solely just on the win rate. Like you lose 3 games and this number's probably like mid 80s. And then you lose a couple more. So it's more just kind of placing to see what's working in terms of deck rates. So this is the Luris version. So the notable thing with the Luris version, you'll usually see it on some numbers of Cthulhu Nightmare. The benefit of going with black, you get access to Juggernaut Peddler as kind of a Thoughtseize style effect, along with the Orcish Bowmasters as a way to kind of control the mirror. Useful in terms of the more combo control versions. You can kind of play a more fair game in terms of paying them for damage as well. We're still seeing some Regavans in the list trimmed down. I think this card's not like superb in the format. Mind you, if we are seeing heavier control decks, it does then kind of have a place again. I think in creature mirrors, it's a little worse when your opponent's just got like 2-1s and 1-1s all over the place that just kind of block for days. I do like the inclusion of Swords to Plowshare here, just kind of upping the numbers. You might see more Sun Cleansers for the mirror given the popularity, so Static Prison does present a little bit of a liability similar. Discharge with Sun Cleanser is useless, but the Static Prison, you could get blown out at times, where if you have an active prison, They Sun Cleanser you lose your energy on upkeep, and then you lose that effect. The bombardments that we've seen from Historic have kind of ported over. We're seeing this in Modern as well, in terms of playing this as kind of an alternate win condition, with just flinging things, easy to flip a Johnny kind of value engine with the deck. Deafening Silence for the Show and Tell matchup. Static Prison is more removal, along with Swords Plowshare. Activated abilities, kind of combo stuff. You can Disrupt or Flute them. Peddler is more Thoughtseize. Sun Cleanser for the Mirror. And Licensors for Graveyard Hate. Now, so this one's not sequential, but I do like featuring the decks when they're similar concepts side by side to see the disparity in terms of the decks themselves. So 61%, 31 matches. So almost the same game volume. Obviously, the Mardu version, the Luris version doing a little bit better. I do like the Flage version. I don't know, just personally. Flage is very redundant. It gets you around some of like the cheaper removal, and the control mirrors, it gives you a little bit more kind of value engine. I really like Omnixus as well against those control decks. Just gives you another alternate win condition. This version's on Orcish Bowmasters, 1 bombardment. You still have kind of the same overlapping cards. No Swords main kind of mixed into there. I was playing like a version of this deck as well. I've liked it. I don't know. It just may be more my play style. Needle for activated ability, Static Prison, Surgical for combo hate. I was playing full for Thoughtseize in my deck, just for like kind of the combo matchups, control matchups, just gives you some value there. Vexing Bauble, another good card against the Show and Tell decks. Now, notably with Vexing Bauble, it does shut off your Amped Raptor, but the Vexing Bauble does work against the Evoke Elementals deck as well. They can't evoke it out. Something to consider there. But quite a bit of an overlap. It's just basically, do you want to play Flage? Do you want to have access to Omnixus or maybe Fable? Or do you want to just be lower to the ground, Chilean Nightmare? What I would say is, if you are playing the Jangantha version, Flage and Nightmare don't work well together. They both want active graveyards. Flage is a much better card, in my opinion, than the Nightmare. We then go to Simic and Show. So this is a deck originally played by Ali Eldrazi on Twitch, content creator, and it's kind of been adapted a few different ways by folks. So the core of the deck, we still have the Show and Tell package. You still have your Show and Tell, Omniscience, and then Fae of Wishes. Fae of Wishes gets Mastermind, Mastermind gets Mastermind, Mastermind gets Bond of Insight gets you back your 2 Masterminds, go get Approach the Second Sun, and then your other Mastermind gets Approach the Second Sun. So you kind of went through that route there. This deck also has another kind of way to show and tell, if you would. There's a lot of self-mill effects, Cash Grab, Malavent Rumbling, Founding of the Third Path. So you mill over your Omniscience, then you have Shifting Woodlands become a copy of it, and kind of combo that route there. Ugin's Labyrinth with the Eldrazi plan. So you can generate extra mana, you have One Ring in here. Ugin's Binding is a bounce effect. Chalice, you can lock your opponent out of 1-drops on turn 1 with an Ugin's Labyrinth. So a bunch of kind of answers there. Sideboard against counterspell decks, you have Defense Grid, Flute, like we mentioned. There's Return to Nature here, so it's a little bit more flexible, but if you're bringing this in for something like the Mirror, you probably want Crossing Grip because it works at split second. So that's one thing you might want to consider. Stonebrain for combo, Graveyard Hate, combo piece, Force of Vigor is another way in the Mirror to use it against heavy enchantment or artifact decks. And then one with the Multiverse is another target you can kind of choose. It's an alternative for Omniscience. If they are bringing in like Stonebrain style effects, you can kind of differentiate. So if they just name one, if they have Surgical, stuff like that, you can have a second variant of kind of the combo enabler. Not as like full on because it's only once per turn, but it's another way to at least get some value out of it. And just maybe with like Feral Eldrazi beats. So then we go to Show and Tell again, but this is mono blue, or mostly blue. So you have your Atraxa line here, you have your Omniscience, Show and Tell, Mana Drain in this one, a little bit more card advantage. You're playing green main for Veil of Summer for anti-counterspell. You have your Dig Through Times mixed into here, so playing just more mono blue. You could take extra turns with Nexus of Fate as well. So this version here is no combo, but basically you establish the Omniscience, get an Atraxa out, and try to take as many turns as possible with the Nexus of Fate. So different kind of take. I think I like the combo version more. It's just if you're going through all these hoops, just win the game that turn instead of having to like non-deterministically try to keep finding your nexus type effect. You'll see white in the sideboard through a couple fetches. Fragment Reality, Prismatic Ending, just hate pieces, removal early, Flusterstorm for like storm decks, combo decks, stuff like that. Surgical for Graveyard Hate, Mystical Dispute, and then Hallbreaker as another kind of win condition post board. We then have 4-color Reanimator, 72%. Basically a Dimir deck with some splashes in here. Actually, Esper. It's Esper Reanimator with Atraxa. That's probably an easier way to say it. So this deck here, you got Psychic Frog that can enable discard, so you can have the fair game plan that way there. Balaji puts cards into your graveyard, helps you find your reanimation pieces, Tainted Indulgence. So you have a scam package with Grief and Solitude where you can ephemerate them or reanimate them. Same idea. Atraxa is another reanimation target. Treasure Cruise can get you card advantage. Brainstorms, Pierces, Sword Splash here. So you can go the fair game plan with like an Esper kind of scam deck, and then you also have the backdoor option to just reanimate Atraxa. Grave Expectation can be used as kind of card advantage or just graveyard hate. Disruptor Flute, as we mentioned. Test of Talents can be used against like Show and Tell, kind of combo style decks. Wrath of the Skies for more of like the energy decks. It's pretty useful there. Harbinger of the Seas as kind of your Blood Moon style effect. You'll notice 3 basics in there, so you can get them that way. Leyline for anything that's heavily targeting Belcher, stuff like that, or heavy discard style decks. And then just a couple different reanimation threats based on what your opponent is bringing. Hellish Norn would be good against energy, for example. Serious Emissary, if it's a very linear deck in terms of like its win condition. As an example, again, with Belcher, if they're going to win from an artifact, you can give yourself protection from artifacts and kind of win that way there. Moving on, we go to 4-color elementals, 71%. So Cabaretti Revels is an alchemy card that basically, in lesser words, you get to cascade in a way where you seek a card and put it into play. So you don't cast it, but it goes into play. So if you evoke your elementals, it counts as cast. So you'd basically cascade. So Fury or Solitude would find either like Omnath, Risen Reef, and you get to put those into play for free. Fable to copy your elementals, get you some value there. Up the Beanstalk, another card advantage engine, works well with Leyline Binding, and then Swords. So kind of just a money pile card advantage engine. Kahira as a way to give your elementals a boost. You usually see this in like blue-white control, creatureless decks, but it's another way. March is removal that's flexible. Disruptor Flute, again, veto for control matchups. There's not really, I guess, Gaia's Blessing in grindier matchups because you can technically draw yourself out. So this is a way to prevent you from milling out, I guess, in the longer grindy games. High Moon versus Show and Tell. Rest in peace for Graveyard Hate. Deafening Clarion for, I guess, like energy aggressive creature decks because you have bigger things that can also gain you some life, which is nice. And then Boseiju for artifact enchantment hate. You then have, they're calling it Dimir Control. Realistically, at this point, it's Dimir Tempo, 66%. So this deck here is leveraging like Psychic Frog, Bowmaster, Cameo, which is really easy to flip with Brainstorm. It's also playing 4 Baleful Strix, so going the full package. And best of one, we saw some of the decks play Baleful over the Psychic Frog. I'm a big fan of Psychic Frog. This card's really strong. On the discussion board for legacy bans, so that's probably something you want to put in your deck. One thing I'd say, I think this might just be maybe wildcard constraints, but you should be playing 4 mana drains before you start adding your counter spells into the deck. So that's an easy switch. If you have the mana drains, play the full mana drains. Another card here from Modern Horizons that we see is Emperor of Bones. So you get to exile a card at the beginning of your combat, and when you can adapt it, and then you could kind of reanimate, gets haste on the turn. So we've seen this as more of a combo enabler in a way with, like, say, the new Ulamog, because you can haste it out and it sees a card from exile. So you could force Annihilator their entire board. This one, it's more of like just a value engine. So you could like draw another card off Baleful Strix, reanimate a Bowmaster for the turn. I wonder, I think with Cameo, the wording, because if you flip it, yeah, you exile it. So it'd probably remove the condition of the sacrifice at the end of the turn. I believe that's how it would work that way there. But let me know if I'm wrong in that case. A lot of disruptive elements with this deck. Cthulhian Nightmare is another way to kind of rebuy your stuff. And then Flare Denial, you can sack like your Baleful Strix for free kind of cast. Stern Scolding for the low-cost Lurrus kind of mirrors, Extraction for Graveyard Hate, Flutes again for the control matchups. You have Snapcaster, Test Talent for combo decks, stuff like that, Deluge for the energy decks, and Licensors for Graveyard Hate. Then we go to Boros Energy, 65%. So without the black, you're playing Flages in here, a Fable, you have your Unstable Amulet, pretty much like the historic version with Fetches and Ragavan. With the nerfs in that format, you'll likely see some folks port over their deck if they want to continue playing it. A lot of the elements we've spoken about already in terms of the sideboard. The Boros version's a cleaner mana base, so it's a little bit easier to adapt the Blood Moon plan, whereas with the Mardu version, you'd be forced to play a Swamp, and it's just really counteractive with the Flage plan in that respect. Then go to Mono Black Reanimator, kind of scam. This one's at 63%. So you have Shelly One Ring action, you have Grief with the addition of Not Dead After All or Reanimate. Reminder, folks, if you are planning on doing the Not Dead After All, go into full control mode to get that value. Harvester Mystery can be removal, reanimation threat, help against those go wide energy decks. Trolls, another graveyard reanimation effect. We have Consuming Corruption as a removal spell that can also gain you some life. So it helps with the One Ring as well. Deathrite Ritual kind of power through the engine there. Then we have Duress, Surgical Extraction for Graveyard Hates, Thoughtseize for more hand hates, Massacre versus like energy, same with like Lurrus decks, you have Path to Peril, Harvester of Misery for the go wide. So just kind of hedging against the more aggressive decks, or if you're playing against some combo decks, bring in like more Thoughtseize or stuff like that. You may want, even in this deck here, I can see where to go. Vexing Bauble being a reasonable inclusion, just to help against like show and tell and stuff like that. Could be something interesting. So this one's one from the community. This is from Inkling 6. They went 37-13 in Mythic with Necrogeist. So Willowgeist here, while guided Bowmaster for a turn, whenever one or more cards leaves your graveyard, you put a 1/1 counter on it. When it dies, you gain life equal to its power. Deathrite Shaman can enable it. So this is just cards leave your graveyard. So exiling a land. Emperor of Bones is another way to enable it. You have Bowmaster, some Sorens in here. So it's kind of like a Golgari kind of mid deck. Karavek is a way to recycle your stuff. Grief in here. Cling to Dust. Ritual. So it's kind of Necropotence package. The cool thing is with Necro, when you discard a card, it goes into exile. So it's another way to kind of power it out like that. So kind of a cool Golgari mid-range-ish deck that's got some graveyard synergy, but not directly reliant on the graveyard. You have Fatal Pushes in the side, Meat Hooks, Witherbloom Commands, a pretty flexible card in these Eternal formats, given there's a lot of non-creature, non-land permanents that are 2 or less that you can hit. Bombardment, stuff like that. You got some Flares, Corrosive Grip, Titan of Industry. This one's an interesting one. I guess for show and tell, you flash in your Titan and blow up their Omniscience, which is kind of cool. Or you just Stonewall their Atraxa, which is also kind of cool that way there. And the last thing I wanted to show was not necessarily to deck tech it, but just Jeskai Control's not doing so hot, folks. The deck that was built to beat energy, sub 50%, so just keep that in mind. I know some folks are potentially looking to pick it up. We'll kind of monitor it in coming weeks if it's just a blip or if it's continually kind of downward in terms of win rates. So this is the Wrath of Skies energy package with like Flage as your win condition. That's it for the week. Hope you enjoy. As always, thank you in advance. And if you can, drop a like, comment. Thanks for watching.